see this now. The topic, of course, is we're going to talk about AI in the enterprise and a playbook for enterprise leaders. This is me. I'm going to skip that. I'm sure some of you have heard this line before. May you live in interesting times. It is an ancient Chinese saying, and it's not necessarily a positive saying. What they mean when they say, may you live in interesting times, is that interesting times come with lots of confusion, lots of uncertainty, not unlike the times today with AI. What we're seeing with AI right now is a lot of hype, yes, a lot of possibilities, but new technologies coming every day, every year, every month. And for enterprise leaders, people who are trying to make impact with AI, it's making things interesting. So may you live in interesting times? Yes, we are right now. I thought I'd start with just a little bit of computing history. If you think about it, history in the tech space, in the recent tech space, is divided into four phases in my mind. The first one really was the modern computer. When the first computer came out, it allowed things like rocket ships to go into space, satellites to get launched. Then we started connecting these computers, and that brought the internet, networking, being able to connect with people across the world, being able to have smartphones, mobile computing that allowed us to do that same level of computing, except with little devices in our hand. And now this fourth one is really a tectonic shift. And this one is artificial intelligence. So this is really the start of something very big. Just like each one of those three ages, this is going to be big, maybe even bigger than all of them combined. So how has data, machine learning, and AI changed over the last few decades? It started with reporting. So it started with humans looking at past data to provide insights. Then we went on to start building predictions, machine learning, models, etc., anticipating where things were going to go and helping humans adapt to them. Generative AI in the last few years, and you have to remember this is very, very new. November 2022, most people didn't know what generative AI was. But today, ChatGPT, etc., some of the most powerful, most common, most highly used applications in the world. Generative AI went on to create things, whether it's content, whether it is being able to talk to each other, became a communication mechanism, or even code, right? So we went from reporting to predicting to creating things. Now, what we are doing with agents is we are acting on those things. There was always mechanical ways of doing actions, robotic process automation, etc. By the way, if you want to learn more about that, I put a very small little clip on LinkedIn. Go find it. It explains the difference between agents and robotic process automation. But agents now have the ability to reason, to make decisions, and to act autonomously by themselves. This is what the evolution really has been. But during this evolution, where still is that promised enterprise AI revolution? We are seeing in some places performance gains, but not exponential performance gains. We were told that we will have 10 times the business speed, efficiency, innovation, etc. Are we actually seeing that today? I'm not so sure. However, if I ask the question of what that problem is, I don't think it's what most of us think it is. By the way, there is a Q&A button there. If you want to ask questions, go ahead and put those questions in that Q&A tab. Ask those questions. We'll try and get to all of them over the course of this event. If we can't, we will reach out to you afterwards and talk to you about it. Tell us this question. What do you think the problem is? I believe that the problem is not AI. We talk about AI, machine learning, and large language models and how fast they're changing and the quality, etc. I don't believe that's actually the real problem. The problem really is all of the other things around this. Sure, there is a technology issue with machine learning, AI algorithms, LLMs, but a bigger problem is the bad data. A bigger problem is the fragmented data. It's the silos, it's the understanding, it's the culture. So even understanding how to use AI. Some people are afraid of AI for good reason sometimes. Some people don't understand what data they should be using, right? Data literacy is a big problem. One big problem also is very cultural again, is that we don't start with the outcomes in mind. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there, right? So, how do we make sure that these things actually don't become problems? Well, this is a number that's been thrown around many times. I don't remember exactly where this came from, but everybody says 70 to 80% of enterprise AI projects fail to move beyond the pilot phase. I think it was Gartner, maybe somebody else, don't quote me on it. But it is time to move beyond that hype, and it is time to change that 70% into an actual impact. What this means is we can again make AI about that growth, about that efficiency, about creating that difference. But the question that decision makers, whether you're a technical decision maker, a business decision maker, but if you're working on data and AI problems, the question really is, okay, I've got all this data, I've got AI models I can use. Where do I really start? And how do I make sure that it actually delivers ROI? Regardless of how advanced you are, these are questions that are still there. So I thought before I go a little deeper into this, let me ask you a question. How do you eat an elephant? Well, the way you eat an elephant is, Akshay, do you know the answer?
Yeah, bit by bit.
Yes, one bite at a time. Exactly. So, regardless of whether the elephant is a pretend elephant that big or a real elephant, when you're trying to solve a very big problem, you don't start by attacking all of them. You attack it one bite at a time. Now, there is one very big misconception in people's minds. We are stuck on proof of concepts. Proof of concepts are only useful in my mind when you're trying to prove something that is radically new. But there are hundreds of thousands of AI implementations out there, maybe millions of AI implementations out there. So, what are you trying to prove? Is it just that you're trying to learn something? And that's why I believe the more important thing to do is not to do proof of concepts, but to do minimum viable products. Minimum viable products. What is a POC versus a minimum viable product? A POC validates that something is possible. It's disposable. You do it, you test it, you learn a little bit, and you throw it away. And there is some time that'll be taken days, weeks, months, whatever it might be. A minimum viable product, though, is like a POC, except it is a foundation built for productization. And it is strategically thought out. You are going in the direction of where you want to go. So, my suggestion is don't do POCs. Let the vendors do the POCs. Let others test it out. Read. All of this information is on the web. You should be able to find out what is possible and what's not possible. Instead, find where you're going and do an MVP. So for the rest of this presentation, we're going to assume that you're doing an MVP. So now let's take one more look at what are we getting wrong right now. In my opinion, the things that I have seen we are getting wrong are things like the data quality, the information itself, not just the data, but the information we are getting out of the data. There's a difference. You may have data, the data may be of high quality, but if you're not able to get the knowledge, the information out of it, then you've got a problem. You're not going to be able to do AI. AI literacy. How do you make sure that people actually understand which AI tools to use, which machine learning tools to use? How do you use them? The people themselves are a very big part of the question. And humans in the loop, being able to make sure that there's actually governance there, compliance, regulations. And of course, if we don't know where we are going, if we don't know what the outcome is, then any road will take us there because we won't know when we get there. And the final thing, of course, is the people part, which is not just the people who are working on the product, but that strategic alignment with the stakeholders. How do we make sure that our stakeholders know what we're doing, that we're aligned with where they want us to go, and that we are going there together? In order to solve all of these things, I came up with something that I call the DAI-POC Playbook. What is the DAI-POC Playbook? The DAI-POC Playbook consists of data, AI, people, outcomes, and culture. This is a playbook you can use to develop AI, to deploy AI, and to get ROI out of it. Let's walk through what it actually means. We start with data. Understanding the right data, understanding the knowledge, the information that is in that data, making sure that you start with the data, get it right, get it to the point that you can actually use it and get useful output from it. The second part is the AI itself. The AI can be, are we using LLMs? Are we using AI? Which LLM? Which machine learning model? Are we going to build the models? Are we going to get them from outside? Are we going to take them off the shelf? All the AI part, that's the second most important thing that we must look at. The third one, by the way, all of these are of equal importance. I have just lined them in the order that I thought was appropriate. The third part is people. People, as in the people who are going to do this, do they understand it? The stakeholders, the people who are going to use this. And also, very, very important with LLMs and generative AI and agents, having humans in the loop, right? Being able to actually come back to people and ask them questions and be able to make sure that we are actually doing the right thing. Of course, as we said earlier, without the right outcome, you will not be able to get to that point that you get an ROI because we will not know where we are. Have we done what we wanted to do? How do we measure that the system is actually doing what we expected it to do? And having that strategic alignment with the teams who are going to measure those outcomes. And then, very, very important, last but not the least, culture. Culture is so critical to AI efforts. We have to build a culture that cherishes AI, doesn't just understand AI, but knows how to leverage it. And this doesn't happen in one day. So, this is a journey. We have to go through that journey over a period of time. And how do you actually execute on this playbook? Well, you start by defining that outcome, defining a high impact problem. If it's not a high impact problem, nobody's going to be interested in it. It has to be time sensitive. If it isn't time boxed, again, won't become important enough. So defining that outcome, what are we going to go after? What is the problem? And then validating that with the stakeholders, figuring out what the opportunity really is, what is the ROI, and then build that MVP. Like we talked about this before, don't build a POC. Go straight for an MVP. You don't need to revisit what others have done. If somebody has tested this out already, find it. Talk to people like me. We'll be more than happy to help you, point you in the right direction. Build that MVP that solves that same high impact problem that we were talking about. Make sure from day one that you actually have the governance and responsible AI built into the system. If we don't do that day one, then we will come back and we'll find there is a problem. And then have the ability to actually measure impact again from day one. If we don't have the hooks in there to be able to measure the impact, if we don't know what that impact should be, we will not be able to come back and say that it is done or not. And this, I believe, is the basic enterprise AI playbook. DAI-POC, feel free to use it. If you want to talk more about it, more than happy to come back and have that conversation. Let's dig a little deeper into what each of those blocks mean. So the first block is the data block. Bad data is something that when you see it, you know it, because what you'll find is there'll be incomplete data, there'll be inconsistent data, you won't be able to understand what's inside it, it may be siloed. The bottom line is bad data is data that leads to poor insights and lack of trust with the data itself and with the AI team, with the machine learning team. Let's face it, if a stakeholder doesn't have a good experience with the data, they're not likely to come back and ask for more, right? Good data, on the other hand, is data that we have prepared in order to expose knowledge about the business, understanding those correlations, what causes what to happen. It doesn't just have to be structured data. We've always looked at data as structured, but there is unstructured data too. There are comments from customers, there are documents, there are reports. How can we look across both of these? Some of it may be labeled. How do we label the remaining part. And it is representative of the problem that you're trying to solve. And the best part about good data is if you've got that knowledge, if you've got those correlations, if you're looking at the right set of data, you will be able to get accurate results that we should be able to test and see that they're actually giving us the results that we want. So, why does good data make AI smarter? Well, pretty simple, right? It improves the accuracy. If you have good data, you're able to get accurate results. It increases the trust. It reduces the biases. It doesn't have those biases that would give you wrong results. And let's face it, it actually speeds up the cycle of training, of learning. What all of this does is it drives better decisions. Good data makes not just the AI smarter, makes us look smarter. So, why did I talk about this part? It's because this is what we do. At DataHack AI, we build an analyst agent. An analyst agent is a suite of agents that sits next to the business person or to the data analyst and follows the DAI-POC in order to actually do what the human needs to do. And if you want to talk about this, by the way, reach out to us, put a message in the Q&A. More than happy to talk about it. So let's talk about the AI part. We talked about data so far. Let's talk about the AI part. The AI part is about using the right AI. It's not just about understanding the AI. Now, I'm sure most of you already understand this, but what is AI versus generative AI versus AI agents? AI is just simply a set of software that is able to learn from the data and with some training is able to provide solutions, right? And this could be things like chatbots, recommendation engines, facial recognition. We've all used these. We've seen self-driving cars, et cetera, et cetera. Generative AI, most people know it by the name ChatGPT, but it's not just ChatGPT. It's any AI that is able to generate these content. Now, content, we're used to seeing text being generated or figures being generated, but it actually can do a lot more than that, right? You can actually generate code. Your mileage may vary. It may not always be the best code, but it can generate code. It can generate marketing copy, and it's being used very heavily right now for design, for designing product prototypes, etc. And of course, the best power of it is you can personalize a lot of this generated content to the person, the customer who's actually using it. And then, of course, AI agents. What are AI agents? If you take AI and you allow that AI to actually reason, to understand the data, and to take action within limits, within responsible AI limits, independently, without the human having to tell it what to do, then that is an AI agent. And these kinds of things are beginning to happen right now all across the world. And you will see a lot more of AI agents as we go. Now, one last thing on the AI side is responsible AI and automation. What is responsible AI? Responsible AI is the ability for us to look at AI and make sure that it's being safe, make sure it's being unbiased and fair, and make sure we can actually understand what it's doing and why it's doing that. There has to be some level of explainability so that if something goes wrong, we can understand what happened, we can correct it. And this could include, things like if you've read the European Union Act, they have this very specific thing about when can you use AI in hiring, because AI could have unknown bias behind the scenes, right? And so this responsible AI part includes also things like regulation, like the EU AI Act. If you're in a different part of the world, there are different AI acts. Understanding how to use AI responsibly, that's what responsible AI is: safety, ethics, fairness, etc. And then, of course, agentic automation is if you use the AI agents that we talked about beforehand in order to automate processes. How do you reduce manual intervention? Doesn't actually mean that you do only completely automated systems. No, what it actually means is you start by training it with human in the loop, and then you get to that point that you can get to the end-to-end process without manual intervention, if you want it to be like that. So we talked about data, we talked about AI. The third was DAI-POC, remember? So people, outcomes, and culture. Let's talk about people. people on the executive side, first of all, the executives, the people at the very top of the company, the people who are leading this need to be involved. And if they're not involved, call somebody like me. I'll be more than happy to sit down with them and talk to them and have that conversation. So, how do you align the core strategy, core AI strategy with the core business goals? This is the role of the executive. We have to also get their sponsorship in order to champion data and AI literacy across the whole organization. And let's face it, as goes the executive, so goes the rest of the company. The culture of AI that I talked about earlier depends on the executive, but it doesn't stop at the executive alone, right? The executive has to put that example up there. They have to uphold that AI governance, responsible AI, etc. But they have to also be able to measure the success at the end to see whether it actually did what it was supposed to do. Very quickly, talking about outcomes, those measuring of that success, you need to be able to actually say what exactly you planned to do and whether it is doing what it was supposed to do. And it's important to define these outcomes beforehand. If we don't define, then we will not be able to measure, and we must measure what matters. No need to measure some of those things that may not be important to the business. So first understand what are the KPIs that you must monitor, and then actually monitor those. And there are a whole bunch of other steps that must be taken, which include things like the foundations, right? What are the use cases, the business critical use cases that we must do? Should we build or should we buy? A lot of things are available off the shelf, but there could be a very good reason for building certain things. Should we do it in-house or should we get somebody from the outside? By the way, if you need expertise in the AI, machine learning, data areas, talk to me. We'll find you the right people. We might be able to work with you directly to help you, regardless of whether you buy our product or not. Feel free to reach out to us. You know how to get to us. And then, of course, having that success framework. If you don't have that success framework, then you will not know whether you're being successful or not. And as we said before, start small. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Start with an MVP, but an MVP that scales. And last but not the least, again, the literacy, the culture,
Hey,
embedding.
KK,
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm really sorry, guys. I'm really sorry, KK. Sorry to bulge in. I guess we have some technical issue. KK, can you just give me a pause of like about 2 minutes? I think there's a hung up on the meeting. Give me 2 minutes. Let me just fix it up, and I'll give you a head start. Will that be okay?
No problem. We will stand by.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. And I'm really sorry for that technical issue.
Don't go away. We will we will stay here and wait for Ankit to try and finish this.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes. KK, meanwhile, I've seen that there is a question in chat. Maybe you can use this time to answer that question, right?
Sure. Why don't you go ahead?
Sure. So one question is like, I think the people have, have found it very interesting. And somebody asks Rohit, who says like, who owns AI within the company? I think that's a really interesting question, right? Who really owns the AI? So
I think that's a brilliant question, Rohit. And it's brilliant for a few different reasons. Because the stakeholders for AI will depend on the use case. But if we let every stakeholder attack AI from its own direction, it becomes really difficult for the whole company to go in that same direction, right? So you have to have stakeholders who are going to be responsible for winning in one area of AI. However, you need to have a central team. You need to have a central direction, whereas you may have a chief data and AI officer, you may have a head of data and AI, you may have the CTO or CIO. Somebody senior needs to own central data and central AI. And then we need to have somebody who actually owns the end result. And these two teams have to work really, really closely together because we sink or swim together, right? So if you've got, as an example, if you've got a marketing use case and you need to increase your conversion rate, and you're putting ads on Google and wherever else you're putting ads. Now, the team that's doing that is going to be sitting between both the marketing as well as the central team, because the central team may have ways and means of getting the data together for cleaning the data, data quality issues like that, right? So, who owns AI within the company? I would say the first person who owns AI within the company is the CEO, because the CEO really has to guide the whole company to start using AI. After that, the next step is that the stakeholder owns the results together with the central data team that has to help to implement it. And it's a shared responsibility in my mind. But brilliant question. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. Thank you so much, KK, for answering that question. And I hope Rohit and everyone else have got the insight. So I've just got the go ahead from the team, KK. So you can pause from where you were and resume.
I can resume from where I was. Now I got to remember where
S-
was I.
You were in the governance part. So we were talking about
Yep,
governance,
yep.
what needs to be done. So yeah, over to you.
Thank you for telling me. I will bring it up on my side. I'm assuming you can all see this, and this is full screen again.
Yes.
So we were talking about literacy and literacy both. People talk either about data literacy or about AI literacy. But literacy really is about understanding both the data and how you can use AI in order to actually get those results. And this is a learned skill. It is not something that you learn in school. You learn it in real life right now. And so you have to encourage people. This is the executives encouraging people to do storytelling. Data and AI is all about storytelling and visualization and expressing it. How do you make sure that answer to that last question, right? Collaboration. How do you get idea sharing across teams? You may have a central team and you may have a stakeholder team. How do you make sure that they're both using data and AI? And then daily workflows. If you're a Microsoft shop, you might be using Copilot. If you're a Google shop, you might be using something else. But depending on whatever you are using internally, there are tools today that are available for summarizing meetings, for following up on action items, etc. Integrating this AI in the daily workflows is a critical part of learning AI and getting to be very comfortable with AI after that. Now, in governance, governance is not about limiting people. Really important to understand that. We talk about AI and data governance as being limiters. When I was a chief data officer, I was not the policeman for data, right? This was not the data police. Instead, we were the ones enabling people. Governance is about enabling people to do what they need to do safely, sustainably, ethically, right? And that's why governance exists. Yes, there is compliance. We do ensure that there is compliance, but giving those tools, giving that support, having that human in the loop architecture, being able to put in that transparency and interpretability allows us to actually do more with data and AI. Therefore, AI governance and data governance is about enablement. Let's very, very quickly take a look at a use case. I know we've taken a little longer than we would have expected, but we've also spent some time answering a question. So I'll go very quickly through an example of a DAI-POC use case. And this is directly from something we have been doing with one of our own customer data. So the example is from sales and marketing. This is about the analyst agent that you saw earlier. This is a data hack product. And the analyst agent has this thing called the advanced analyst agent, which is an AI system which understands the data, understands the hidden patterns. Remember, we were saying data is the problem. It makes data part of the solution, not just the problem, and can then interact with a human to make the decisioning. So, DIPOC, start with the data. So in this example that we've got online marketing data and offline marketing data. This is about selling a product either on Bing, email, etc., Instagram, etc., or selling it in a trade show, selling it at a store event, etc. And then there's a sales data set. What did we sell? Where did we sell it? In 2023, where did we sell it? How much did we sell? Etc., etc. And then there is customer data. Of course, this customer data is completely made up. There is no personally identifiable information here. I'm not showing you anything that needs to be hidden. Try and send an email to one of those and let's see what happens. Maybe it's a real person. I'm kidding. Please don't. So we've got customer data, we've got sales data, and then this data has been fed into the advanced analyst agent in order for it to build a view of what is actually happening on the ground. Now, the outcome. What do you want coming out of this? This is one of our interfaces. We have a few different interfaces. This interface shows an example of us asking a question, almost a co-pilot style question. The question being asked is, hey, today is 1st of January. I want to increase my sale by X% in the next month. Tell me what's the minimum amount I should invest to achieve the goal, etc. And then it takes us to the AI. So as one more thing to watch here, by the way, on the bottom of your screen, you'll see multiple agents, a query breakdown agent, an analyst agent, etc. These are real agents that are going to take the question that has been said and are going to break it down and answer the question. So what is the AI part? I'm not going to show you the details of what's actually happening, but behind the scenes, the AI is now running, analyzing, doing this SQL queries, etc. And then we get the human involved. Remember, people was about having the human involved. So now the AI is responding to the human and saying, all right, this is what you asked me. Here's the premise. And here are the subqueries that I think I have to do in order to answer those questions. And the human might want to interact with it, might want to change it, might want to agree with it. And then there is the outcomes. The outcomes are, once the agent has finished doing what it needed to do, it's come back with a clear plan. And the plan is, hey, you need to invest this much in Facebook, you need to invest that much in Instagram, and this is how you will do what is needed in order to get the answer to the question that you had asked me in the beginning. Remember, this is the outcome being answered. And now you can actually measure it and say, okay, if it says that I should invest this much, let me invest it and see if it actually did what I needed to do. And if it didn't, then we can do something different. We can tell it what happened, and it will come back and tell us what needs to change for the next time. So summarizing all of this, this was DAI-POC. We went from data to AI to people to outcomes to culture. Enterprise AI today does not need to stay at pilots. It is time to actually bring it to product. We need to get that performance going. We need to be able to deliver measurable business outcomes. We have talked about focus. I don't believe that you need to attack all 100 of them. You can start with one. If you have difficulty picking the use case, come talk to us. We'll help you figure that out. You need to start with those places where you have the data, where the data quality is reasonable, where you have a business pain point, and you have clarity on where the company needs to go. The AI strategy must not be different from the business strategy. The AI strategy actually derives directly from the business strategy. Where does the company need to go? That gives you your AI strategy. And you need to actually understand how to execute on this. Sometimes we will have people inside the company who can do it themselves. Sometimes we may have to go externally. And there is nothing wrong with it as long as you understand, as long as we understand, as long as the senior most executives understand why we are doing that. It may be the fastest way to actually move forward. But always measure, are we actually doing what we said we are going to do? And let me leave you with one last thing. AI and humans together are always going to be more powerful than AI by itself or humans by itself. AI is not about replacing humans. It's about how do we supercharge our humans and make them into super analysts. Thank you so much for listening. And I'm going to go back to Akshay and ask if there are other questions, Akshay.
Hey, KK, thank you so much. I think it was a lovely interview and a lovely explanation. So, yes, we do have a couple of questions. So, one of the guys asked, like, you have talked a lot about like data and silos. So, what strategies can someone use to break down data silos across departments and teams? This is a question which has been asked.
I think that's another brilliant question. The data silos across a company it's a real problem. It happens everywhere. We have to figure out how can everybody have access to the data and understand which part is the most important part. By the way, the silos in a company cause very big problems sometimes. And what do I mean by big problems? Suppose you've got a sales team and a marketing team who are looking at basically solving the same problem, two sides of the same coin, but they're looking at the data differently because their sources of data, the way that they've stored it, where they have stored it, are slightly different. And therefore, when you do data cleansing, when you do data surfacing, it actually becomes slightly different views to the same data. So if you have data silos, what's going to happen is sometimes when you're talking about the same thing, your sales team and your marketing team may not say the same answer because they're coming at it from slightly different ways and they're looking at the data differently, which is why we came up with something like the analyst agent example, not pitching the product, but just talking about the idea itself that you should have the ability to look across data sets and to be able to ask a question. And the system should be able to understand where is the source of truth, right? And if the finance team, as an example, we talked about sales and marketing, in that same use case, if the finance team is the one that's reporting this to the street or reporting it to leadership, then the finance team has to have one answer that both the sales team and the marketing team agree on. And that should be the real truth. So the important thing is identifying where the best data lies, making sure that across the company, people are actually using the same approach to the data. And I won't name names because these are public companies, but in one company that I was working at, we had an issue with the definition of certain data fields. And these were KPIs that were used by everybody. And the question that came up was that these fields were defined slightly differently, right? And what's a general purpose term that I could use? Gross merchandise value, right? Gross merchandise value, GMV, can be defined very differently by different people in the company. Now, if you have different definitions, then you're going to have a problem. So one of the first things I do when I go into a new organization is understand what are the top KPIs that the company is working with. If the finance team is responding to the street, if the CEO is responding to his stakeholders or her stakeholders with certain answers, then let's make sure that everybody across the company understands the same meanings, that there is a source of truth that people are able to use, that when the data is coming in, that it is actually cleansed, monitored, and provided with a trust metric, right? You want to be able to say, what is the trust value? Is this data cleaned? No. Let's tell people this is raw data, right? Use it with caution. And then we may have a medallion architecture, right? You may have gold data, you may have silver data, you may have bronze data, and to market such so that people actually recognize that and be able to use it like that. By the way, I'm gonna answer Owen, who put a comment in response to Rohit's question there, saying who owns AI within a company. Owen says it's everyone, but the best practices and guardrails need to come from both the leadership as well as the center of excellence. And Owen, I couldn't agree more with your answer. Absolutely. Who owns AI within the company? Everybody. Yes, the leadership needs to start, but it goes all the way down into every role, every function, people who are generating that data. But there has to be a center of excellence that gives that guidance, whether it is on the guardrail side, whether it is on compliance side, or even on saying which data set is the source of truth. All of this is done centrally. Akshay, are there other questions?
Amazing. KK, yes, we do have, but I see that in the interest of time, I think what we'll do is we'll get back to these guys with in a reply on their email so that we can have that communication going and make sure that we answer questions. So first of all, I'd like to, yeah, John, I think, has been raising his hands a few times. John, if there is something, you can just drop a question in the chat and KK would be more than happy to answer it. I hope everybody can access the chat group or the chat so they can put their questions in. because I see that
Yeah.
people have used that. So I
And
assume.
John and others, if you want to reach out to me and just ask that question directly, I'm on LinkedIn. Just reach out to me. More than happy to respond as well. What I will say is, for those of you who are here, if you enjoyed this, please share this. It's going to be, the recording is going to be available online. Please share it online, share it with your network, and tell us when you're doing it as well so that we can learn from it. The second part is people like Owen and others who are senior leaders themselves in their organizations and have seen these things. I'd like to invite you up. We're going to keep doing this webinar. We're going to do it regularly, as regularly as we can. And what I'd love to have is that people are able to join us and give their opinions. So if you have a topic you'd like to hear more about, if there's something specific you'd like to deep dive on, John and others, please ping us and we will make sure that we are able to answer those questions. All right. So thank you very much again. Back to you, Akshay.
Awesome. Thank you so much, KK, for the explanation and for a wonderful experience. I'd call this a journey and an experience rather than a presentation. So thank you so much for that. And thank you everyone for joining in, taking the time. And I hope we answered your questions. If not, do reach out to us. We have our email if you want to reach out to KK. He's available on LinkedIn, and his email, which is kk@datahat.com. So make sure you do reach out to him. So thank you so much, everyone. And in the interest of time, thank you so much, KK. See you guys next
Thank you,
time.
everybody. Thank you, Akshay.